So each summer, our leadership team takes time for some personal reflections so that we can get better touch with the teacher or the leader who resides within us. What we do is based on the work of Parker Palmer, and if you know any of his work, you know that the Center for Courage and Renewal is located near here on Bainbridge Island. So I was hoping to have a chance to visit there, but it doesn't look like I will. But one of the activities that we do from time to time is to identify the stepping stones in our lives. And stepping stones are referred to as those life events that have influenced who we are today. They're different for each of us, but usually they're people that we've crossed paths with, places that we visited, circumstances that we found ourselves in, decisions that we made, or events that have occurred. And so this evening, I'd like to share three of my personal stepping stones and how they have helped shape me and influence my thinking about teaching and learning. My first stepping stone is the one placed by my parents. From a chronological perspective, it's the first stone of many that have helped me throughout my life and one that started me down the path I've walked. To understand the influence my parents had on me, and that's a picture of me, by the way, with my parents, it's helpful to understand a little bit about their background. My father was a lieutenant in the Army during World War II. Unfortunately for him, it was the Polish Army. He was captured during the 1939 German invasion of Poland and spent the remainder of the war as a prisoner. He moved from one prisoner of war camp to another, and in the end, being forced to take part in one of the 500-mile death marches that occurred throughout that part of the country. Needless to say, somehow he survived, and when the war ended, he worked with the British Army, reuniting displaced children with their parents. My mother, also in 1939, at the age of 18, was placed in a series of forced labor camps. She spent the next several years, until the end of the war, being forced to support the German war industry. Both my parents were reluctant to talk too much about what they saw and experienced during their period of captivity. It was only in their later years that they were willing to share some of what they had experienced and some of what they had observed. In any case, they survived their respective ordeals, met each other shortly after the end of the war, married, and came to the United States, with only the clothes on their back and a trunk containing a few of their personal belongings. A few years later, I came into this world, followed by my two sisters. We moved from Chicago to Michigan shortly after I turned 5, just in time to start kindergarten and a lifetime in the world of education. An interesting thing to note here is that when I started school, I could not speak English. The neighborhood we lived in Chicago was a totally Polish-speaking neighborhood. There wasn't much of an opportunity or really the need to know another language. Needless to say, the first couple of years in school were, for me, a real struggle. I can tell you, though, that I developed a real love-hate relationship with phonics. And I have to say that because we're putting in a new phonics program in our district this year, and I'm waiting to see how that's going to work out. Both my parents are deceased. My father passed away in 1985, my mother in 2003, but the lessons I learned from them will always live within me. From them, I learned the value of hard work and persistence. I learned what it meant to be a survivor. And I benefited from the fact that they instilled in me the value of education. They wanted their children to have more than what they were able to have, and they saw education as a key to growth. I'm forever thankful that my parents chose America as their land of opportunity. I encountered another stepping stone as a sophomore in high school. His name was Marlon Scharf. He was a teacher at Bangor High. He had the most natural and comfortable way of relating with students. He saw the potential in each of us and would go out of his way to help us work towards our potential. In me, he saw something that revealed my talents and abilities, things that I myself had yet to discover. As a result of his nurturing personality, support, and encouragement, I was eager and willing to learn from him. The man had patience almost to a fault. He took pride in his work and the accomplishments of his students. He tolerated the many questions that I had, and he trusted me. Not only was I given added classroom responsibilities, but he also had me take care of his home during the summer months when he and his family would vacation up in Wisconsin. He was also open and honest about the barriers he had overcome in his own life. As a young man, he came down with polio. Physically, it weakened one side of his body, which only progressed as he got older. But he was determined to not let the effects of polio interfere with living a good life or from doing his work. Consequently, he taught us how to work smarter, not harder, a skill that he was forced to develop. He required me to produce my best work and to always challenge myself. But he also allowed me to make mistakes that I was expected to learn from and to make right. Our friendship grew over the years and on into adulthood, and I know that how he treated me had a profound effect on my life. And when he passed away a few years ago, I knew that I had lost a special friend. However, I'm comforted in remembering that certain look in his eye when he saw that I had learned something new. And it's that look that I enjoy seeing as I observe teachers interacting with students across the district. So there's no doubt in my mind that relationships between teacher and student make a difference. What teachers do matters. The third stepping stone I want to share is actually a grouping of three, our three children, Becky, Andrea, and Adam. I didn't have to look very far to realize that all kids aren't the same. Rebecca relished rigor. Whether it was academics, playing the piano, or running, she couldn't get challenged enough. Well, maybe except in her first year of medical school, but she always was up to the challenge. The more you threw at her, the more she wanted. She reminds me of the fact that we need to set our bar high for what we expect of our students. Rigor is important. Relationships were most important for Andrea. She has always been surrounded by people. They're her lifeblood. If she didn't have a good relationship with her teachers, learning became a challenge. She needed teachers who nurtured her, could engage with her, and who saw her as the person she was. She learned particularly well from teachers who expected a lot from her, but did so in a climate that allowed her to build her self-confidence. Rigor combined with relationships is even more important. And Adam, as you might guess, needed to see relevance in what he was learning. There was our first hint that something in the DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, might be somewhere down his alley. But if he could be shown how what he was learning would apply in his life, he didn't have any problems. But if he couldn't see the relevance, it was an exercise in futility. It took us just a little too long to realize that piano just wasn't his thing. Those were some fun years. And looking back, it would be easy to draw a graph that shows the amount of effort he would put into something and how it correlated with the level of relevance he saw to it. So we hear a lot these days about the 3 R's, rigor, relevance, and relationships. I'm fortunate that through my children, I've been able to observe some of the different talents, abilities, and challenges that children bring to our schools every day. It's given me a much deeper and sharper image of what great classrooms need to look like. And it's living proof that one size does not fit all, and that approach just does not work in education. We each have stepping stones in our lives. I have many more, some of which have been placed by people in this room, others still waiting to be surfaced. They've each played some role in shaping me. We live such busy lives that we don't always take time to reflect on the things that have helped shape us. And I hope that in sharing some of my stepping stones that I've given you some cause to hit the pause button, to still yourself and your mind, and to contemplate your stepping stones and how they have contributed to your big picture and the overall scheme of things. I'm looking forward to this next year as president of AASA. I expect that it too will become a major stepping stone in my life. I pledge to use the lessons I've learned in my lifetime to do my best to represent our membership, public education, and most importantly, the children who cross our paths on this journey through life. Thank you.